This is Mile High.
Do I want to tell the story or do I want to show the message?
You've got a lot of work to do between Mile High.
The time has come where we can know
we have a responsibility, an ethical and moral responsibility.
We have to do it better in order to move people along.
Up, down, inside out.
If you get your mind right, it is not. It is a receiver of thought. Because love is my first technique.
it's now time for the show.
Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Whatever altitude you are joining us from, we obviously are at 5,280 feet in Mile High territory. And I encourage you to please hit the subscribe button on whatever channel you are watching or listening to this. Hopefully you have the Mile High app and you can download that along with the podcast and have Mile High in your pocket. If you have not, you can hit subscribe on iTunes or Spotify so you never miss any Mile High tick. And hopefully you also have dialed in that September is when Mile High 12 is, which is kind of hard to believe we're going to the 12th year of Mile High. So we look forward to seeing you in September on higher ground where the leaves are changing. It's beautiful, great vacation with some great have great camaraderie and community with outstanding chiropractors. Beth Zogg, Dr. Beth Zogg is joining us today on the podcast, which I'm always thrilled to talk to her and hear her wisdom, her multi-generational wisdom in chiropractic. She's been a presenter in Mile High multiple times. So she is a 1995 graduate of Life University. She teaches classes in Thompson Technique and chiropractic thermography. Her and I actually met when we were both students when I was at Sherman and she was at Life. I actually helped with a program that was in my basement of my house, coming back where we met. And I used to run programs out of my house basement and host things. So it's interesting as life changed, life stays the same. She's on the board of the J. Clay Thompson Technique Foundation, the Association of History of Chiropractic, and chair representative, the assembly of the ICA. She's working on masters in nonprofits. She can help with leadership in all of these areas. So we're really grateful to have her take her valuable time to be with us and to share her wisdom with you on the podcast. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Beth Zogg.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to get to connect with you again.
Well, it's going to be fun and a learning experience for everyone. First of all, let me ask you, a little bit. Can you share about what shifted you or what brought you to going to the chiropractic route in chiropractic school?
Oh, wow. So you mean like kind of where I wanted to go with chiropractic, or just what got me into chiropractic in the first place?
What got you into going to chiropractic school and becoming a chiropractor?
Well, yeah. So my grandpa was Clay Thompson. So I grew up with him as my grandpa, the only grandpa that I had. And, we got checked every week that we saw him, and Mom and I would sometimes go to his programs with my grandma, and, we might just go shopping while he was speaking or something like that. But all of those big names in chiropractic, were family friends. And so, chiropractic was always a part of our life. I never thought about it as a career or anything like that. As a younger girl, I studied dance. So I studied ballet and modern dance, and I wanted to get into a modern company. But one year, my grandpa and grandma said, "Hey, we're going down to this DE meeting. They're going to have a big birthday party for your grandpa, and we really want you guys to be there." And so we went, and, we've been to these before, but for some reason this time I was just looking around at all of this like love and enthusiasm that all these chiropractors had for each other and for chiropractic. And something just clicked, and I was like, wow, maybe I should become a chiropractor. And it's so funny. I said something to my grandpa. He didn't say a word. Like, he didn't even acknowledge that I mentioned it. And then years later, I overheard him say like that was the happiest day in his life. But I guess he just didn't want to jinx it or something.
Right.
But yeah, really, it was just being around chiropractors that made me want to be one. And we are very unique in that. We're so passionate about it, and it is kind of just infectious, I think.
Yes, yes. Well, it's an interesting community of people. And can you say anything more about, or what can you say more about, the experience of having a chiropractic legend in your family? Because most certainly Dr. Clay Thompson is that, and growing up as a second generation chiropractor, like the gifts in it or some of the challenges.
Yeah, I think, because it was my grandpa and not a parent, it was, kind of just easier, because like for my mom, it was really tough because my grandpa was a chiropractor back in those days. Chiropractors were really not respected and she got made fun of in school and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I kind of just reaped all the benefits from it, because, that was just my grandpa. He was this kind of like really fun, good sense of humor, um, just like kind of the mad scientist, always inventing something, always working, always going somewhere. He's like, move, move, move all the time. And so I guess when you grow up with chiropractic, you don't know anything different. And I guess, I don't know, my brother and I probably took it for granted a little bit because we would see my grandparents every Sunday for lunch. And then sometimes my brother and I would be like, oh, I hope Papa forgets to check us today. Like we didn't really appreciate it that much. But then, when I got to chiropractic college and then these people were just so excited, like, oh, Clay Thompson, Clay Thompson. And it was weird. It was weird because up to that point, nobody really cared who my grandpa was. And it really wasn't until I got into chiropractic school and even later on where I started reading through, all of my grandpa's patents and started to really get the full picture of just how much that he and my grandma and my mom too, sacrificed and gave their whole life to chiropractic. And it kind of just makes me love it even more knowing, how much that my family loved it, how much that my grandpa was, close with BJ Palmer. It's just like these deep roots. The more that I learn about my grandpa and his experiences, the more that I just feel so deeply connected to our history.
Did it really is. You don't have the perspective of, because I know this in my own life, of how special someone is because you're a familial relationship. And it's a different relationship, but then you have a different perspective, like, wow, this is really a gift to be this person. Be with this person, have this person in my family. So it's a very interesting experience. So, and I don't know the answer to this. Did you actually? Because I know how much PJ Palmer was a fan of your grandfather. What did you ever meet him, or was the timing?
No, yeah, no, so BJ died in 1961 and
Mm-hmm.
I was born in 1967. So I
Okay.
never got to meet him, but my mom knew him really well. And he was very, very kind to my family, really good to my grandma and grandpa and my mom. But I never got to meet him, which is, I wish I could have. I mean, just the things that I've heard about him and his love for chiropractic. I mean, my grandpa said that BJ was just obsessed with innate intelligence. He would sit for hours just pondering upon it. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I could just have had like 10 minutes to talk to him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now, I mean, BJ raved about Clay Thompson, and was obviously a big fan of the Thompson table. What can you say about, because you know a lot about chiropractic history? Let's start there. What can you say about BJ Palmer's appreciation of Thompson technique and the Thompson table?
Yeah. So initially, when my grandpa started working on the very first drop headpiece, everything at that point was upper cervical work, the HIO work. And so
Perfect.
initially my grandpa developed the drop headpiece. He wasn't trying to come up with any new technique. He was just trying to find a way to help the toggle recoil give even a better adjustment, I guess you could say. And so, you know, it wasn't like my grandpa was trying to make something new. He just wanted to make what they were already doing better. And so my BJ was really excited about this, the new principle. They did, a lot of testing in the BJ Research Clinic, and they found they got, better results with the drop piece than just that stationary head piece. And so then, BJ would send my grandpa to teach different places to introduce that. Well, then BJ actually was in favor of developing the drop mechanism to the full spine table. And this was
So
very
BJ was in favor of
controversial.
that. He was.
He was,
Yeah.
yeah, he was, but not in the sense of going back to like the old Merrick system. And BJ would never say that anything below C2 was actually a subluxation, but he would say it'd be okay to address those areas down below. So my grandpa did start working on the full spine drop table. And then BJ actually sent my grandpa around to teach on that. And, BJ lost a lot of support when he did that, because that was very controversial. And about this time when my grandpa was developing the full spine table, that's when the full spine adjusting was coming back into Palmer. So it was kind of just, that was all happening at that time in our history. And I'm sure BJ recognized that. And so even though he would never say, to adjust down below, I mean, he was always pure in his upper cervical philosophy. I think he was maybe just realistic about the fact that we need to have good techniques for the below C2 as well. So but it was it was a really interesting time in our history. And that's, I think there were some major splits at the college, like when BJ introduced the NCM in 1924, a lot of people left and branched out. And then when the school kind of started going back to full spine, he lost a lot of followers. But I think it's okay because, all of those split offs created new schools, created new opportunities for students to learn. And it's good for us to have a lot of different techniques. So in the long run, I think it's all a good thing that we have that diversity in technique.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So what are some things about Thompson? And I'm a big fan of Thompson. I'm a big fan of the recoil principle and a big fan of the recoil principle relative to the table. What are some things about Thompson that make it so special that some of the people watching and listening may not know?
Yeah, I think that the most special thing about the technique is simplicity. It's a leg length analysis that shows you, is the upper cervical area out? Is the rest of the cervical spine out of subluxated? Do you have lumbar subluxation? Do you have something going on in the SI joints? I mean, it just shows you like the major areas of the subluxation in a really systematic and easy, analysis, which that could be used with any technique. Like you wouldn't have to use a drop table. You could just use the analysis to say, okay, well, they have a C1, like atlas laterality right or something like that, and adjust it any way you want to. The other great thing though is that drop table. And the idea behind the drop table is that the chiropractor puts the force through the patient's body. It goes through the pad. And when that pad falls through space and hits at the bottom, there's a concussion of forces in which innate intelligence can take that force and make the correction. And so it's really just, a kind of more gentle way to provide an adjustment, and always giving credit to innate intelligence for making the actual correction. So it's kind of a nice philosophy. I love it because it fits so nicely in with our philosophy. It's not like, oh, I'm going to set this C2 in place. No, it's always innate that does the correction, not the chiropractor.
That's such a vital principle. And sadly, I think it's missed by so many chiropractic approaches and chiropractors. I know in network, that's vital to what we do, is understanding that innate makes the change, not the chiropractor. And it's obviously, as you just said, a vital part of chiropractic period, but also Thompson approach specifically. Can you say anything about, I know you're going way back relative to memory as a young adult and as a child of Clay Thompson. Say anything about that in innate making the change?
No, I mean, he did not like sit us down and talk about innate intelligence. We didn't get really philosophy talks from him, but I mean, his example in his life really were that, so it was just more by example he showed us. I mean, I remember, and I know this would be your experience too. I mean, I remember like staying at my grandparents' house because I would stay with them a lot overnight and stuff. And my grandpa would get a phone call in like late at night, and someone would just come to the basement. And he would take care of them, and the example of just service, of loving, of giving. I mean, I think that is really what I got from him and his chiropractic patients more than like the actual like philosophy of chiropractic. But that being said, once I got into chiropractic school, then the philosophy was the main thing he wanted to talk about. So it was very, very important to him. I wonder, like, sometimes if he just didn't bother talking about it to all of us because we probably wouldn't have really got it anyway. So you know how it is. Like he goes off, he's lecturing, a lot of people, giving him attention. And then he comes home and then he's just Papa, he's just Clay.
Right,
He's like,
right,
take out the garbage, go
right.
make the bed or whatever. So we didn't like sit around adoringly just hanging on his every word kind of a
Right. Oh,
thing,
I know. I get it. I get it. I get it. Absolutely. So,
family will keep you humble for sure.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So now, what do you really wish more chiropractors understood about chiropractic, whether it be philosophy, science, or art? I mean, we just talked about how innate, does the adjustment. I'm assuming that's one thing that you would like more chiropractors to understand. Or what other things might there be that you would love to see more chiropractors understand about the philosophy, science, and art?
Yeah, I think one thing that you hear a lot of people say, like especially in marketing, is like, oh, stress causes subluxation. We hear a lot of chiropractors saying that. And I guess, I would like for us to shift that into really the understanding of our philosophy that it's not stress that causes subluxation, it's the body's inability to adapt to that stress. I think that is a very important point that we need to be explaining to our patients too, about like and the profession needs to understand, like we don't say to the patient like, oh, you got in a car wreck and that's why you got a subluxation, or you got mad at your husband and that's why you got a subluxation. It's not those stresses, it's the body's inability to adapt to stress. And when patients are under care, their body's better able to adapt to stress. And innate is like constantly learning, like if there's a stress on a person, she's able to adapt to that better the next time. And so, I mean, I just think we really need to understand the depth of innate intelligence and what a beautiful thing that human life is, and get away from just like treating aches and pains or what have you, but really focusing on how incredible the human body is. And that's where I think we get the excitement in the profession, and get away from all like the humdrum, like, oh, this and that. I mean, we say like, oh, the young people aren't excited about chiropractic anymore. That's not true. They're excited, and everyone's excited when they really understand the principle. So
Right.
we have to keep the philosophy forefront above everything else.
Mhm.
That's my opinion, and because that's what binds us. Like you and I practice a different technique, and we teach technique, and we could be enemies. We could be like, I'm better than you, but we're not like that. We love each other. We're like, we both get it because of our philosophy. We love and respect each other. And so I also think another point is that on the issue of technique, you know, what helps innate correct the subluxation is a force provided by the chiropractor. And we know that that is why different techniques work. And so all of us need to work together. We need to share ideas. I can learn from you, and there's things I can learn from you that we can incorporate into Thompson technique. I mean, we need to be on the same team. We need to all be moving forward together. And, even politically, like ICA, IFCO, we need to be merging together, moving the same direction. And because we got a big fight ahead, we've got a lot of bad stuff happening politically, and we've got to get all those people that really love chiropractic and understand our philosophy to come together strong against all those forces that are trying to make us just into a therapeutic model.
Right, right. And that means working together and knowing that we're on the same team. And that is something that's painful for me to watch. It's really why a main impetus for putting Mile High together. So we may have different approaches. However, in our heart and soul, the focus is our principles and values. And we may be on different areas of the spectrum of how close we are to the principle. Some people are much more philosophical than others, but as long as or more know the principles and values more, but as long as we're facing that direction, if we can be on the same team versus compared to being on a treatment allopathic direction, I think it's real important for us to not be enemies and not shoot the point inward. So
Right.
we can move forward. But if we're pointing inward at each other, it's not really productive, and the profession is going to go even more therapeutic.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love about Mile High. You have such amazing people, and I mean, all really different speakers coming talking about different topics, but everyone's there to support and love chiropractic. And like when I think about a person who just can bring all sides together, who can bring the technique and the philosophy, and everyone loves him, I always think Dan Lyons, like he's like the perfect example of someone that can bring everyone together. And we need like a whole bunch of more of Dan Lyons out there, just like really bringing the community together.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you some more questions, but I want to just echo that. Dan was at the first Mile High he was at, and obviously has a Gonstead focus. And there were some other Gonstead students or doctors and said to him something along the lines of, "Why are you here? I thought you're into Gonstead." And I was like, that's exactly the spirit that is a concern. Is like, well, why can't we be together if we do Thompson and Network and Gonstead if we all have the same, values and want to see chiropractic thrive as a profession? Why does it have to be, an antithesis of some kind or not, or be weird, So I'm a big fan of Dan because he not just because he stands for, but also he really holds in the heart what we were talking about. So talking about Thompson, what can you say? Like if people really want to learn Thompson, maybe they didn't learn it in school, or maybe had a surface layer of it, because I had a surface layer of it in Sherman. It's where actually the main thing I did when I was in the Sherman Clinic as a student. If you want to really learn and master Thompson, what are the resources for that?
Yeah, thanks. Well, we do have a nonprofit for the technique, and that's thompsontechnique.org. And so we do have certified instructors that teach classes all over the world. And like I personally am doing a certification series at Logan this year. And so, all of our instructors are, out there teaching classes. And even if you don't want to do a full like certification, most of us do shorter programs at different events, like Mile High or, different places we teach a little introductory. Anybody who wants a free PDF of a Thompson manual, I am more than happy to send. We have permission from 2 of our authors that have passed away to pass on their books for free. So I'd be happy to pass those along. You can just give out my email address if you want to in the chat or the comments. So that's a nice kind of resource just to kind of have a book and be like, oh yeah, I remember now from school, negative Deerfield, adjust sacrum, or whatever it might be. And then, anybody that has any interest or questions, feel free to reach out to me personally in my email if you have questions about the technique. We do have a really good Facebook page as well with some historical stuff on there. So, hopefully we'll be getting more and more instructors. We're trying to bring in younger people because a lot of us are a little bit older, and just really, bring in some young instructors and just keep the excitement for the technique going.
Okay, and what's the URL of where they can look into that?
The Thompson Foundation website is thompsontechnique.org. And then if they want to email me for the manual, you can email me at Beth Zogg DC@gmail.com. Or also you can just email the foundation Thompson Technique at yahoo.com. So
And
yeah.
we will put that in the we'll put that in the liner notes too. So so because I want more people to be exposed to Thompson, especially people that may have gone to less philosophical schools and may not get introduced at all. I mean, I know that the more philosophically based schools will introduce people to it, but it's definitely not a place of mastery. And I remember reading the whole Thompson manual because I want, back in the day, but I have to admit that I need to do a reintroduction. So, but again, I think it's a vital thing for people to learn. So I know, and you went through, I just so loved when you were posting a whole bunch of old pictures. They were just really fun to see for a while in the Thompson group. Where did you find all those?
No. Well, my grandparents just left me all of the stuff. So I'm going through it bit by bit. And a lot of it's in the form of slides. Because in the old days, like you would take a bunch of slides and then you have your friends over and do a slideshow with like have popcorn and stuff.
Yes.
So I'm converting a lot of those slides over. And then what I plan on doing is just donating, a lot of that stuff probably to Palmer Archives because they have a really good system there. And then I'm converting a bunch of video, like really old video. And it's really fun just to go have time, just go through bit by bit. A lot of the patents I found in my grandpa's work, and it's really fun because like the original patent for the drop headpiece, the people that were giving the affidavits for it and testifying on behalf of it were like BJ Palmer. And like half of BJ's affidavit is chiropractic philosophy. And, the government recognized it. And it's like, oh, it's such rich history, So
Yeah,
I do love history. That's why I'm involved with that Association for the History of Chiropractic. That's an awesome group. If you're interested in history, for sure, check them out. But yeah, I have all this stuff just in tubs and I just go through a little bit at a time because it wasn't organized, it's just stuff just thrown in. And so it's taking a lot of time to just sort it all out and copy the pictures and scan them. And
right.
Yeah, it's fun though. It's really, really, I love it. It's like a lot of treasures in there of history.
What do you think's most needed in chiropractic leadership today?
I mean, I don't mean to sound brash, but I think what's needed in chiropractic history is like a big set, a big pair of balls. Like we got to stop trying to be nice to everyone. We need to stop trying to bring everyone in under the big tent, people that are trying to destroy us, people that are denying subluxation. We need to be bold about what we are and what we're not. And we have to draw the line in the sand. Like, if you don't believe in subluxation, then you don't understand chiropractic. And we can't, keep allowing these people to be instructors at our colleges. We can't promote them at our programs. And so I feel like it's time for us to really get bold, get strong, and really start fighting for what is true and what is not true. And I mean, I think in the past, chiropractors are good people. Like we serve, we want to be kind. And so I think sometimes when something is said that isn't right, we tend to just be like, we just try to keep quiet and be nice. But I think that time is over because we are being, sucked into this therapeutic mode, using the adjustment to treat symptoms. And if this continues, we are going to be lost completely.
Right.
And so I think, for generations, there have been warnings about this happening, and now it's actually happening. And like in Iowa, our governor is trying to merge chiropractic board with athletic trainers and massage therapists. And you know what? That's our fault because we have been too quiet. We've been too complacent. And we've got to start really standing up for what is true for chiropractic. We need to make sure that the world knows that we locate and adjust subluxation. We are the only experts in that. What we're doing is not the same as the PT, the physiotherapist, the massage therapist. And we really just need strong leaders that are willing to do that, even if we ruffle some feathers. And I hope that's okay to say on your show.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's something that, I mean, I know you saw that growing up, and I know you saw it in school and the first years out. It's a conversation that I heard in the backseat of the car when I was growing up, and
Right.
on the phone and in seminars, and it's just gotten worse over the years. And I mean, it's really the energy that I put in at Mile High is mainly into making it. And you know what? People don't necessarily realize the energy it is to put on any event. I know you've been putting on all the individual Thompson events.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I've never done anything to the scale that you do, so I can't even imagine.
yeah, I mean, I know I put on the individual network events, and that's a lot of energy. It's more than people realize, just like it is in doing the Thompson. Putting on the Mile High event is so huge. And I put the energy in because exactly what you were saying. That's why I do it, is I saw really in Colorado how much things were really pushing towards expansion of scope. I was like, I can't sit by and let this happen, and I had to bring the troops together, and like things of what you're talking about. We're not going to do it if we're saying, well, Gonstead is better than Thompson or vice versa, or we're saying, like all that kind of talk. We're not going to, move forward. And really, so it's something that's dear to my heart, what you're talking about. So I really appreciate how much we're on the same page as that. Now the foundation that you have started, the Thompson Foundation, why is this important to chiropractic and Thompson particularly? Why do people want to watch and be involved with the foundation?
Yeah, I mean, initially the foundation was created to preserve the technique and promote the technique because we don't want it to be lost. Sometimes when the technique developer passes away, then everything starts to get watered down, things get added, things get taken out. So it's really just to make sure that there's a source of the pure technique as Dr. Thompson taught it. But then that being said, we do want to encourage people to take Thompson technique and develop it further into new techniques. So we're very in favor of that. And as a matter of fact, one of our board members, Joaquin Farias, he has developed a technique and he's on our board. He still loves Thompson, but we're so proud of him because he's taking what he knows of technique and developing it even further into something new. So, we promote new ideas coming out of the technique. We also do want to do research that doesn't just, verify Thompson technique or promote our technique, but that's really subluxation focused that helps chiropractic as a whole. And so we have some ideas of some research projects that we want to do. And we really want to offer a lot of free offerings to students. That's part of our mission and part of being a nonprofit. We want to offer free educational materials, free classes, because the students are the future of the profession, and we really need to make sure that they have some solid skills on technique and, on like just how to take care of a patient when they walk through the door without being afraid.
Right.
So, our main goals are education and research. And we're really excited. We have such an awesome board. I mean, some of our board members, Aram Gomez and Marielle Perez. And so, I mean, we have some amazing people on board. We're getting some younger people on, bring fresh ideas. So I can't wait to see where we go with it.
Yeah. And it's so important for something as great as Thompson to move on. What's one of the things about the Thompson approach that you think is super special and really holds a dear place in chiropractic art?
Well, obviously, I think the drop principle is very special. That was, the very first kind of technique that took that idea of, that higher velocity adjustment, more gentle on the patient. And then you see a lot of things come out of that, like instrument adjusting and so forth. So that makes it very special, because if you could adjust someone and, say you take two people, one you adjust with a more physical adjustment, and one you adjust with a drop table. The one adjustment it feels like less painful or less stressful to the patient. If you get the same results for both, why not go with the one that actually just, is more comfortable? So, I like that. I think that's very important. But also, I think the special thing about the technique is that it's a good way to educate patients about innate intelligence and their body's ability to adapt and heal, because, the leg check is the way the body shows the doctor where to adjust. So it's not like the doctor just coming in and being like, well, I'm just going to do this or that. You're relying on what the body is signaling you to do.
Right.
And you can tell patients about that. And then you can also educate them about, innate makes a correction. Like when the table hits bottom, that's when your body actually fixes itself or heals itself. And so I think that's very special about it, because it's really easy to explain innate intelligence with this technique.
Right. And I appreciate Thompson so much. Everything you just talked about, the parallels to what I teach with network are so close. So phenomenally close. I know Thompson had a big impact on Donnie Epstein. There's so many similarities or things that he learned and valued and appreciated from Thompson, and that he learned in chiropractic school. So it's really,
and that would make my grandpa so happy. Like these pioneers, they were borrowing from other people too. It's not like they were greedy about what they had. Thompson Technique takes from Logan Basic Technique, from SOT, and all these guys traveled together. They shared information. After they taught, they'd go in a back room, and be like, hey, I got to show you this, or what do you think of that? And so, my grandpa will love it that network takes parts of what he created, and he got a lot of those parts from Romer Deerfield and,
Right.
other people too. So it's like, we're all so intertwined in technique.
And we should, I know, I've had enough conversations about and with many of the earlier pioneers. They were on a mission together to find what are the best ways to impact the spine, to adjust the spine, to reduce subluxation, and they were so grateful to say, hey, something that Thompson contributed was so valuable, and how can I do that to help me over here? And what Logan did was important, and how can that help me grow? There was so much of that. It's an interesting thing. There was one time I was at my office, and a traveling salesman knocked on our door, and he was selling supplies. And he was an older gentleman. He was selling supplies, and he said he actually hand delivers supplies like face paper, etc. And he used to be involved with the Colorado Association way back in the day. He was the main account for the Spears Hospital. Like, he did all their supplies.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah, and he said, I just started having this hour conversation because I was like, wow, this is amazing. And he said, this is fascinating. You're gonna find this fascinating because it's like a little bit of chiropractic history. He said, he was there when BJ Palmer spoke to the Colorado Chiropractic Association, like way back, and then he had to be in his late 60s or 70s at the time. I'm sure he's long gone at this point, because this was like my first couple years in practice. And he said something you're gonna find fascinating and also sad, which was, he said, the difference between chiropractors back then that I'd see and the chiropractors now, he said, then they would all be talking about innate and adjusting and how the best ways to adjust people. Like, that was a conversation in the vendor area and there.
Wow.
He said, now it's all about how do we make the most money and what things will help us make money. That's what he literally said to me. And it was heartbreaking. And I know it's also, true, right?
That's sad. And it's like my son, my 25-year-old, he's at that age, he likes to have these deep conversations and debates and stuff. Kind of drives me crazy. But so we got on this debate about, he sees how much time I spend on chiropractic related things, most of which I don't get paid for,
I'm living the same life
and,
as you.
and he's like, Mom, why don't you just do something else? You could do a different job and make so much more money. He's like, are you willing to just give up everything and, would you just go so far like to just have no money just for chiropractic? And I'm like, yes. And that is what all of our, ancestors did. They were willing to put it all on the line every day for this great thing that is chiropractic. And I feel like we need to get that spirit back in the profession, because, if we aren't willing to sacrifice, it's not going to be here for the future.
Right.
And life is not about just get all you can for you, just so that I have a comfortable life. No, life is about service and loving. And, we have such a gift in chiropractic. It cannot be lost. We cannot let that happen.
Right. Well, I cannot. People think, for example, that I make a lot of revenue from Mile High, and it's like that's not true. As you just, I'm like, well, if I the amount of hours, the revenue is not there, But my family will say, like, why are you doing this? It's because exactly what you said. The principle is so important, and I know if I don't do this, students that only hear about it at Mile High are not going to hear about it. Or people that say, there are people that told me that this podcast, Beth, they're like, if I hadn't listened to this podcast throughout school, I would have been a glorified physical therapist, and I'm so grateful for it. And like, that makes my day, even though I don't get anything for the podcast, But it's of serving and hope, hoping that there's more of a torch, that someone to receive the torch that's passing down.
Yeah. I mean, our impact is not for today, it's for the future.
Right.
And I mean, like for me, my grandpa would have died if he had never gone to a chiropractor when he was 26 years old. So I wouldn't even be here if it weren't for chiropractic. And I think we sometimes just forget, like the subluxation is life or death. It's not a back pain. And I mean, no one else knows this except the chiropractor. So if chiropractic is lost, so many people will suffer and die. And that's so sad when you think like we have the answer, And so we have to be willing. Every chiropractor has to be willing to give a little bit. Maybe it's money, maybe it's time, maybe it's, get on that state board or join an organization, you take your family to, like Mile High or a conference. I mean, everyone in the profession has to start giving back, even when it hurts, even if it hurts your pocketbook or your time.
We are kindred spirits. I have to tell you, because you're right along the path for me, and the words you're saying is exactly what I live. So and do every day. So I gotta say, I really appreciate that. Now and appreciate you. And I know that I knew that already the case, but as I hear it, it's like my heart sinks. Because I'm that's where I live. Now let me ask you this. Let's help a little bit for the people listening about Thompson. Tell me about that. When life or death from him getting care when he was 26. I don't know that story. Can you help? Our audience may not know it. Can you share about that?
Yeah. So my grandpa was actually very medical minded. He was a certified pharmacist assistant. He was very much into medicine, and he had gotten a job with John Deere Harvester, which is like up here, in Iowa is a big deal. John Deere tractors and stuff. And he got injured at work. He got hit in the back with some lumber that fell off of a truck. And also just prior to that, he had been sick with the flu. So he had a few things against him. And so then a short time after that accident, he started to develop acute onset diabetes. And because he had that pharmacy background, he knew all the best doctors in the area. This is the Quad City area, like near Davenport. And so he went to all these best doctors. He continued to get sicker and sicker, wasn't responding to any treatment. And finally, he got to the point where his blood sugar at times was like up to 500. His urine was black. He was filling with fluid. He was just in so much pain. He was just hoping that he would die. And so my grandma, they were just a newlywed couple. She didn't really know what to do with him because the doctors said, get your affairs in order. So she took him home to his parents' house, And my great grandparents were not educated people or anything, and so when my great grandpa said, "Hey Clay, why don't you go see the old family chiropractor?" My grandpa was like, "Why should I go see some old quack? Like, I'm dying. The best doctors can't help me." But to make his dad happy, he did go see the old family chiropractor,
Oh, wow.
and he got adjusted like every day for 16 days, and he went home completely cured of diabetes. He never had
Wow.
diabetes again. And
Wow.
so then it took him about 10 years after that before he went to chiropractic college. And my grandpa said the reason was that that chiropractor just never explained why. Like, he didn't understand, how chiropractic had saved his life. But when he finally did go to Palmer and started hearing BJ talk and this whole new language that is chiropractic, innate intelligence and subluxation and, nerve pressure and all of it, then he started to understand, how the accident had caused him to become ill, and then how the adjustment had helped him get better. And so he just, he was one of those people, chiropractic saved his life, which is why he was willing to give everything back to it. And, I am very aware of the fact that, I wouldn't be here, my mom wouldn't be here. Like, I'm grateful to chiropractic for life.
And then that's why you have like no qualms putting the energy in, because when something's given you so much. I think about that with Sherman College. I put a lot of energy, resources, donate like a significant amount of money for Mile High and for my, to Sherman. And I think about it as like, Sherman and chiropractic giving me so much. Rochelle and I would not have met if we had not been there. And
Mhm.
the health that we enjoy, I don't think I would have lived through my health emergencies. I know I wouldn't have lived if I didn't have the adaptive capacity that I received from chiropractic care my whole life from someone who is an excellent chiropractor, and the health that my kids enjoy because they've been adjusted their whole life. That's then if something's given you so much, then you have to give back to it. Something's given you so much to you, then you don't have a qualm about giving back because like what you enjoy because of it.
Right. That's right.
Yeah,
It's gratitude, and
right.
it's wanting other people to share in that same experience, that, like, when we have our patients we see in our practice members, whatever you call it, with the people that you see in your practice, it's like you may not even know that person at all. Like, you may not know them personally, you've never seen them before, but there is something special that happens, that connection between the chiropractor and the patient,
Right.
that, that providing the force, and that they're innate taking that and providing, relief of interference, allowing innate to work the way that 100% that she's able to through matter. There's something so special about that. Like, there's a love that you have for your patients that's so hard to explain to someone who's not a chiropractor. And
Mhm.
we just can't let this profession be lost. We just can't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree so much. I really appreciate what you're sharing. Is there any something I want to ask you one more thing, but before I do that, is there any something else share about chiropractic or the foundation or the Chiropractic History Association that you think is important that you'd like to share before we wrap up to our audience?
Well, yeah, I mean, for Thompson Technique, please check us out. We've got really good seminars. It's a good, solid technique. Learn it. Learn other techniques too. So, I say that for sure. Do that. The other thing that is, make sure that you have some kind of objective measure in your office, whether it's thermography, heart rate variability, surface EMG, something objective to look at, plus your X-ray pre and post. And then, the third thing I think is just that get involved politically, get involved like with your state associations, go to the board meetings, and, really, while we've been working hard, the enemy has infiltrated, and we got to take that back.
I just got to say, OMG, you sound like me. I keep beating the drum of people saying you've got to do some kind of objective indicator to know that you're actually contributing to the person's health. and you, if you're doing what I do, that like, please do that. But I tell chiropractors all the time, it's like my main part and one of the big parts of my presentation at Mile High. And you've got to, you sound like me. It's no wonder we're kindred spirits. And I want to ask you this. You've been at Mile High a couple times to speak. What did you love about your Mile High experience?
Oh, wow. I feel like, when you speak to different groups, you don't really ever know what the vibe is going to be from the audience. Like you could go speak to a group and they're just super like reactive and like really giving back. And then sometimes you'll speak to a group and they're like a little more stiff and you're like, oh, I got to work really hard to win them over. So the Mile High group of people is just a complete pleasure to talk to. I mean, they are so engaged, they listen, they show up, and they're giving you like feedback. They're really, it's like such an amazing experience because everyone there is so in tune with chiropractic, with each other. And even if you don't know them, you never heard them. I mean, the speakers, it is just amazing. It's so fun to be a presenter there. And I mean, it is awesome to just go and listen. So you guys you're doing it right for sure.
Well, oh man, coming from you, that just lights up my day and year. So I really appreciate you being part of Mile High. Really appreciate you being part of the podcast. And I'm going to tell people again, please, ThompsonTechnique.org. If you've never, if you've learned Thompson, maybe it's probably time to get a refresher or go in a different depth, increased depth. If you just thought I learned Thompson in school, I guarantee you didn't really learn it. You need to learn more on top. No, seriously, you have to learn, really become excellent at it. And you can, there's a Facebook group, Thompson Technique, go there. And, the things that you're saying about objective indicators, be involved, and we've got to, make sure we take back the profession. And, those are so vital. So thank you for being who you are. Thank you for you taking your time to be at Mile High so many times, and also to be with us on this podcast. I really appreciate how you show up in the world and in chiropractic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Danny, for all that you guys are doing too. Love and appreciate you guys.
Well, we're on a similar path for sure. like just like this, so thank you so much. And I'm going to get more involved with the Association for Chiropractic History because I have not been, but now you're inspiring me to do that because I don't have enough. So I got to.
Yeah, let me just say a little bit about that real quick.
Please.
This isn't a group of people that comes from like young chiropractors, older chiropractors, people from like all the different colleges, all sides of politics in chiropractic. And this incredibly intelligent group of people come together, and you're going to hear presentations on stuff that is so interesting and entertaining. It is really one of my favorite groups. And we have a conference coming up, I believe, in the summertime. I should know that. But I just got on the board, and so I am really excited and honored because I feel like history is so important. And, just like any kind of history, you have to know where you came from to be able to know where you're going. But it's the most delightful group of people you will ever spend time with. I really can't say enough great things about it. So please check them out. Come to our conference. It's at Palmer, Florida this year. And if nothing else, join the Facebook page, join the organization. They send out, like periodic like articles and interesting stories. So please join that group.
Yes, I cannot agree more. So and because I watch what they do, but now I've got to make sure I get involved and go to an event, and I'm encouraging people.
Oh, we would love to have you.
Yeah. I've got to do that. So thank you so much for your contributions to chiropractic. Thank you so much for what you're doing with carrying on the traditions and the information of your grandfather. It's so vital, and it's so appreciated to see that the heart and spirit you do it with. And you, as well as all our viewers, listeners, keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic. And look forward to seeing you in September. RiseUpToMileHigh.com.